Welcome, everybody, to XPACER by Marathon. XPACER is a wonderful place where Marathon share their pace-setting products and services with the world. And Marathon is a service design and experience design firm working out of Nairobi, building products and services with beautiful and meaningful experiences. Today, we have an exciting group of people from the banking industry, where we're going to be looking at banking customer experience. With us today, we have the pleasure of Liz Okomba, who's a Group Head Customer Experience in NCBA Group. We have Steve Jenga, Group CIO Payments, Equity Group Holdings. And we have Job Jiru, Director Customer Excellence, KCB Group Shared Services. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This evening, we're going to be talking to our guests here today about CX and looking at how they work with customer experience within their banks. We're going to start with a bunch of questions thrown to one of them, and this will be a simple question: what it takes to keep up customer experience and please customers in your banks. I'll start off with you, Liz. Liz, I remember from back in the day in 2018, I met you figuring out journey maps, trying to see the metrics you could measure for customer experience.
Yes.
So I think you've come a long way making sure there's customer experience within the bank and fighting for the customer. So what does it take to please customer and keep up the customer experience in your bank?
Thank you each, and thank you, Marathon, for inviting us for this exciting session and topic. Each, the question you've asked me is not an easy question. It seems like a very simple question, but the work that we have to put in to ensure that we please our customers is not simple. Times are changing, technology is moving very fast. Our customers have basically been taught by big tech. Our customers now interact with Google, they interact with Amazon, they interact with Facebook. And when they come to the bank, that's the type of experience that they're looking for. And we have to please them and live up to that expectation. So it's not easy, but the steps we are taking at NCBA is to ensure that we're able to give our customers, most importantly, an omni-channel experience. So a blend of where they're both able to interact with our branches, and yes, guys, branches are not going anywhere, but most importantly, that they're also able to do their transactions and their banking digitally. So we are pushing the philosophy known as phygital, the physical and digital experience for our customers. And that's what we are pushing to please our customers.
Thanks, Liz. I'll throw that to you, Job, as well. KCB, Job, I remember meeting you in 2018 in a massive customer experience section of KCB, a whole floor, in fact, dedicated to CX within the bank. So welcome, and just let us know what is KCB doing to keep up CX and please the customer.
Thank you, Rich, and asante sana, Marathon, for having us here. As Liz has alluded, that's a very tough question to answer. And to answer that, first and foremost, you have to understand who's the customer of today and who's your customer. One thing is that the customer today is very unforgiving. The customer today is very impatient. The customer today has very many options. And the customer of today is very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
So now each, you're asking me, how will I please this guy? Or how will I maintain this guy?
Yeah.
I think for us, the one thing is to listen to the sound of the river, to listen to what the customer is telling us. Where are they banking? Where are they going to? What are they consuming? What are they telling us?
Yeah.
It has to start from the point of insights, the point of first digesting what they really want. And for us to go back into the kitchen and cook and serve something that they are the ones who want it, as opposed to where we were in the past. We come up with solutions and products and we push them out into the market, hoping they will be picked because the customer has no option. Today the customer has options, the customer is knowledgeable. So first thing is listen, consume data, know what is happening in the universe around them, and then now serve them. That is the approach that we have taken at the KCB Group.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Job. I'll throw that to you, Steve. And Steve, I remember we met back when you were at Barclays, just when it was transitioning to ABSA. And the bank was key on improving the Barclays credit card experience, despite being number one in the market. So that said something that despite being number one, you're still looking at improving how it was perceived, how it was received, how you onboarded customers. Maybe just talk a bit about how in your career, you've seen customer experience kept up and customers being pleased.
Yeah, thank you everybody, and thank you Marathon for this session. You're absolutely right. I think both my colleagues here stated the things we're all trying to do, omni-channel, really understanding the customer. But over my career, and especially since Barclays days, one other thing that is important is the people aspect within the organization. So customer centricity has to start from the top. I think in the early days it was just a department doing CX.
Yeah.
And we really struggled, and I think we saw a little bit of that back then.
Yeah.
We were really ready to go, but if you don't have executive sponsorship, quote unquote, where they're pushing that value all the way down the food chain from the top, it's very difficult to get things going. So that's very, very key.
Yeah.
One other thing that must happen, and which is happening at Equity Group, is empowering the employees to be able to make CX decisions on the fly. Because as Job alluded, customers are demanding, and the demands are changing by the minute. They want things this way, the next day they want something else, the same thing but in a different way.
Yeah.
So how do you allow the frontline individual, the ones who's actually facing the customer, to make that decision?
Yeah.
You have to empower them.
Yeah.
I think the classic example is the Ritz-Carlton, with every employee has $2,000
Yeah.
to solve any CX problem they come across. You don't need approvals, you just do it.
Nice.
So I think those are the two things which I think I've seen are very, very key, in addition to the technology and all that good stuff. But that executive sponsorship, and if everybody understands that we're being customer-centric, then you can empower them because they're going to make the right decision at the right time.
Thank you very much. And you talk about customer centricity. So that brings me to my next question on how you go about collecting information from the customers, and also how you go about ensuring that past mistakes don't continue. So looking back as a bank, establishing what are your top issues and how you go about fixing those. So I'll throw that to you, Liz. Maybe you can just walk us through how, as a bank, you keep that running so that you constantly improve.
Thank you. Banks are data rich, and what we've been actively doing is how to turn that data into meaningful information to continuously improve our customers' experience. So one of the key things that's the in thing in customer experience right now is what we call the voice of the customer. We go back to the customer and basically ask them, how is the experience using our products, our services, interacting with our teams, and generally about NCBU. That's one side of it, and that's post the customer interacting with us. But within the organization, we have a lot of transactional data that is able to feed into behaviors and how customers interact with our products. We can see customers are maybe churning away from our products and services, and we're able to pick that. We have a huge contact center that manages our customers on a daily basis, and out of the information we get from that frontline team, we're able to put stopgap measures to disasters before they happen, and continuously and proactively deal with improving our customer experience. So it's more about using the data that we have within, and there's a lot of investment being done on our data side, so that we even now get to the point of predictive analytics and being able to offer solutions to our customers before they even know that they need those particular solutions. Yeah. And our flagship products at NCBA, M-Shwari, Fuliza, talk about that, giving products to customers before they even know that they need that type of a product. Yeah. So yes.
Oh, very nice. I'll throw that to you, Job, also. How is the bank looking within, looking back, making sure the past mistakes are not repeated? Maybe just talk a bit about that.
First, I'll speak about the bank because I think we come from a bank that has a very rich history. I think richer than even the independence of this country. So you can imagine being one of the first banking institutions in this region. I mean, we were sitting as a powerhouse, and as I said, customers then had no options in terms of where to go to and where to bank. But that has since changed. So for us, the first thing to do is to unlearn our old ways. That's one thing that we are doing, that we have to unlearn some of the things that were done in the past, in the premise and knowledge that what God has here will not get us there tomorrow. So listening to the customer, I mean, for us is big time. And the customer today is in all channels. One channel that I mean, it gives me the goosebumps is our social media. I mean, you do anything and you'll either be liked or disliked, I don't know what they call it, but everyone is on social media. So we learn from that because they don't just talk about ourselves, but they talk about the industry in general. They talk about what's happening across the globe. So you have to be attuned to what is happening. So for us, social media is big. Yeah. As Liz has alluded to it, we have a rich source of data in-house based on transactions and interactions that we have. When customers call the call center, there is that one line you hear that this call is recorded for quality purposes. Yeah. It is not just a byline. We actually listen into calls actively on a daily basis, starting from the senior leadership to everyone on the ground, to our quality team, to get to know what is the customer telling us. We also go out proactively and carry out several polls on our customers and non-customers to get to know what is our net promoter score, to get to know what is the customer effort to serve, is the customer at pains getting service from us, and getting to know what they want. And then now also we have a system where all our executives, right from the CEO, have to go out into the market and visit branches, interact with customers, and just get to know what is the feel out there, what is the pain and the joy that our customers are experiencing on the ground. So we have to evolve just as the customers are evolving. We have to go where the customers are going. For us, KCB, it was mainly brick and mortar. In the olden days, you have to go to the branch, and going to the branch was quite a process. You had to dress up, and really prepare to spend half a day there. But today, you can see that the digital platforms have taken over, literally everything. So we have to be where the customer, wants us to be or is directing us to be.
Yeah. No, thanks. That's great. You talked about hearing from the customer, collecting information from polls, going to them, customers and non-customers, and collecting that information. Maybe the way I'll frame this for you, Steve, is how that information gets used inside the organization, because it has to go to business units to improve various products, etc., to come before they go back to the customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the industry, and specifically at places like Equity, we've realized that your typical polls like NPS are no longer sufficient. They tend to be very one-dimensional. Yeah. And to kind of speak to what my colleagues have said, we have omnichannel. All of us are doing omnichannel. I mean, that's a known fact. And that's an opportunity to collect even more data beyond just transactional. So we can really get to understand the customer. We also have a voice of the customer. I think that's pretty much well known. Yeah. The struggle has always been, what do you do with all that data? Yeah. With the advent of AI and machine learning, we also now start to crunch that information. And you're right, previously that data would go to the head of retail for the NPS score, but there's not much they can do. Yeah. It's now coming into the technology space to synthesize it, try to get some insights, and those are the ones we give to the business heads, the guys who are running the businesses. Yeah. So we are doing that. We have a pretty big data science team now with some of the best data science in Africa, if not in the world. We brought them on board. We're doing a lot of predictive analytics, especially with respect to assessing credit worthiness. Right now we have the ability, we've scored all our customers. I know exactly how much you can borrow. The trick is, how do I use that information as part of a CX or a customer journey somewhere, like BNPL, for example, buy now, pay later. Yeah. So it's so that it's instantaneous. Previously, a buy now, pay later, you'd have to kind of apply for a loan. Yeah. But now we want to get to the point where we can actually, as you're checking out, I know you well enough, your spending patterns because of your transactions. I know it's the it's the 18th of the month, payday is the 25th, so
Yeah.
you're probably looking for an extra, a little bit of money extra.
Yeah.
So that's how we're really working with the data. It's still quite a ways to go. I think the African, or let me say the Kenyan space in terms of really getting insights into our spending habits, our transactions, our lifestyle is a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
But I think we're getting there.
No, that's great. That's great to hear that there's use of technology and trying to really learn your customers. One thing that fascinates me about the banking industry is how long you can have the customer. So the banking industry is unique that you can get a customer as young as a student, maybe brought in by their parents, younger than 16, have them in as young adults at 16 as older students, still keep them when they start off in the job industry, and when they move on with their lives. They're getting married, they're starting businesses, they're moving jobs all the way into their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s and beyond. So CX kind of evolves for that client across their age groups as you try and keep them in your bank. And I've seen the banks now have products for all these age groups. So how do you evolve that CX, starting from the kids to the young adults to older adults, all the way to their ripe old age, as you try to keep them within the bank? I'll start with you, Lee.
I don't know why each you're picking on me today. Yeah, that's, I like that question because it's actually the essence of the business. You want to be able to keep a customer for their lifetime. And to be able to crack that is actually basically winning the pie, because if you're able to retain your customer, retaining a customer is cheaper than acquiring a new customer.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the customer experience front, we have to draw proper customer journeys. And with the customer journeys, then we're able to map out the customer lifetime through the organization. And out of that, you work with the businesses to ensure that at each stage of the customer's journey, through their lifetime with their organization, you are constantly engaging them to go to the next level. So if someone came into the bank with a kid's account, you have to be able to know the milestones with, of that particular customer to hit them at the right moment until they graduate college, get into their working environment, and you can actually even see when they get married and have kids. And you have to constantly engage them with your products and services to ensure that you're meeting them at their point of need. Now, we need a lot of help in that, and what we're using is customer relationship management system. And now tying that in with data and analytics, then it's going to become much easier. It's still a journey. We are still not 100% there, but my dream is to be able to get notifications at all levels and know that I'm moving to this next step in my life, and the bank has this product or service that is going to fit me.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I'll throw that to you, Job, because I know KCB for sure has had student account. Back in the day, we had the KCB students account. We had various level of good to bad experience, evolving those to proper accounts once we got out of university into jobs. So just run us through also how you evolve CX over age groups.
It's very tough. That's a very tough area, and I wouldn't say we've cracked it. I would say that's where now the issue of data science, as we were talking about, comes in terms of knowing who is your customer, where do they consume this product, what do they want. That's where all those factors come into play.
Yeah.
Take the case in point that you've said about, say, onboarding a kid. Yeah, a lot of us had what you call kid accounts or cab accounts in KCB, opened by your father or your grandfather or a relative who, they've just sponsored you and you have an account there. And slowly you keep moving on into adulthood, you go into school. Then you discover that this guy that you've opened this account for has no clue what the bank is all about. I mean, my daughter is just about to turn 18. I mean, it's hard to convince her to go into a banking hall, for instance. But she's transacting. She's doing everything she needs to do on other platforms and other mediums. So your traditional bank account does not really work for her. So it's for us now in our space, that's where we are challenged as customer excellence executives to now literally get an intimate knowledge of this particular individual beyond the parent.
Yeah.
And as Liz says, how do you hit those milestones in their lives? Yeah. Do you know if they're going into school? Which school are they going to? Which college are they going into? What is their lifestyle? Where do they spend their time, and what do they do, during their free time, for instance? What do they consume even on the social media platforms? That's where all that joined together personalizes the experience that I give you as an individual. Now, you will not have a one-size-fits-all for everybody. It's about personalizing based on an individual and an individual's needs. I mean, for the other sectors, it's almost straightforward because, it is either your SMEs, or in SME, you are a corporate, for instance. But the journey from cab to student, and then now keep you to run a regular account with me, that one is just going to be purely driven by the data and the behavior of the individual that we intend to serve.
Yeah. No, I like that, and I like the framing of personalization, because I think that's where we're really going. And Steve, you talked about getting a lot of data on your customers. So maybe just talk a bit about how you use that to then personalize products to them.
Yeah, I think my colleague here really hit it on the nail on the head. It's a complex problem because the temptation in banking is to segment like you do with SME, corporate. There are firewall segments. Whereas if you want to keep, you want to track or keep your customer lifelong, you need to understand their life stages. You need the data. It's not a firewall separation between high school and university and work. Because even if if you're in college and you have an account, you maybe have a side hustle. You're now at an SME. So it's blending.
Yeah.
And I think it's not just having the data, but having the data and crunching it real time, or as real time as possible.
Yeah.
Which is what we're trying to achieve. Because then when you start interacting with me on any one of my channels, I need to be able to dynamically kind of see as you're starting to change your lifestyle.
Yeah.
That's the key word. What's going on in your life? Because I can dynamically personalize the experience. I think a bank a while back, maybe 15, 20, I think it was Santander, did a study for university students on what do they want on a mobile app, right? Because a lot of them, because of their lifestyle, what came out, all they want, the first thing when they log into the app is very simple, the balance.
Yeah.
So that's all they did, just the amount that's in your account. Because if you're out there, maybe out in a club or trying to buy something, that's all that mattered, because your income is very restricted.
Yeah.
So those kinds of little insights can really change the dynamics and make those customers sticky throughout the rest of their life.
Yeah.
If you're there when they need you, or even there before they know they need you, you're ready to go.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. Just getting to them before they know they need you is really where we want to be, and where we're trying to use customer experience to figure out where they want to be. Thank you very much, Steve. And Liz, I'll put you on the spot with the questions from one of our viewers. A key question on NCBA is, how did the merger between NIC and CBA Bank affect your customer experience?
Wow. Mergers are not interesting.
They're a nightmare.
Yes, I was just talking with Steve and Job here, and I was like, I don't think I want to go through a merger process again. But it was a great learning experience. I had the privilege of leading the CBA-NIC merger. I was the lead implementer. So on a customer experience front, it was not as smooth as we expected.
Yeah.
Remember, mergers, you are merging systems, you are merging products, you are merging, most importantly, people, culture. And that's where our customers interact with. That's where customer experience comes from.
Yeah.
Our customers feel us through interacting with those four key areas. So it was not as smooth as we expected it, but it's over. We're in year 3, and we are here, and we are gung-ho ready to go. And just recently, we were recognized through the KBA survey as being the 3rd bank in Tier 1 in the customer experience space. So that's a good story. It was a rocky start, But we've picked ourselves up, we've dusted ourselves, and we are ready to give Job and Steve a run for their money.
And I agree. It's very interesting just bringing two banks, two cultures, two different cultures of customer experience into one and try and harmonize that into
Yes.
a NCBA way going forward.
Yes.
I'll press a bit more and on that and ask you to talk a bit about how you vision, so that it's how you create a vision and how you share it amongst your team before going forward internally and managing customer experience.
So obviously the customer experience strategy and the customer experience vision is owned from the board level.
Yeah.
So if you do not have buy-in from the top, no matter how many sticks I come with and whips I come with, nobody is going to move and there'll be no action if there's no strategic direction towards saying that you want to be top in customer experience.
Yeah.
So that is being driven from the board. It is not Liz who has her vision on the side.
Yeah.
And we are all aligned on where we want to be in terms of customer experience as NCBA. So that's a very important aspect. You cannot sing customer experience if there's no buy-in or sponsorship from your board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And the next question is also related to this, and it's going to look at your bank's Equity and KCB. These are massive banks that have crossed the country and then crossed our borders and gone regional. So I'm going to start with you, Steve, and just talk about how Equity manages very different cultures, very different countries, very different expectations in managing customer experience across the region.
It's not easy. And talking about mergers, we just did one in DRC about a year and a half ago, 2 years. It was very difficult. The technology merging actually was smooth. I think the people merger is always the most difficult one.
Yeah.
This is not a local Kenyan bank with all Kenyans from both sides. This is now a different country, different culture, different language.
Yeah.
So it takes some time. It's a cultural shift for both organizations that are merging, but it gets there. In terms of ensuring that CX is consistent across the countries where we're in, a couple of practical things you do, obviously. Your contact centers are one of the first places you need to take a look at. Definitely, customers want to experience the brand in their own context. So if you're in Rwanda or DRC, you're going to make sure that if they call into contact center, for example, that they get the right language. DRC, definitely you have to have French.
Yeah.
Everybody speaks French. The dual currency in the market, so even that complicates things a little bit.
Yeah.
So the frontline capability at your local branches, etc. But again, everybody's going digital. So definitely, technically, there's solutions for that. Use language packs in the application, so they can then they can actually set their own language by default.
Yeah.
Where we've seen challenges is when you go out and create those language packs, you tend to use the standard sort of language. If it's French, you're going to go French. But you find out Vitukwa ground is a little bit different French they speak. And when we translated it, you're like, they don't really quite get it. It doesn't make sense. But it's pure French.
Yeah.
But it's like saying, you want to put Shang on the app.
Yeah.
Not Swahili, because people wouldn't understand. So those are some of the challenges. But from a technology side, which is what I represent, those are pretty straightforward to overcome. I think it's more on the people side, appreciating that they're different cultures, even from head office, for example, which we've done very well. Our ExCo is constituted with folks from very many different countries, so we already start getting that flavor. That we're no longer just a Kenyan bank, we're regional, we're global.
Yeah.
So that really helps. That's what we've
No,
done.
that's excellent. Thanks. Job, I'm going to hit you with two parts of this, just borrowing a bit from Liz and borrowing a bit from Steve. One, walk us through how at ExCo level that visioning happens, especially on a regional level, and then down to the people, how you're managing different geographies, different cultures across the region, maybe even different cultures within Kenya itself, just rural, urban, peri-urban, and so on. Yeah.
Thanks, Inch. That's a very tough one. But for us at KCB Group, what happens is that the customer experience strategy fits and mirrors the global strategy that we have at the bank. We have the beyond banking strategy, as we call it, that speaks heavily into customer excellence, because for us we are now moving from customer experience into customer excellence, and actually now towards driving what you call customer obsession, which means that across the entire organization we have to be obsessed about the customer in every single space that we sit in. Whether you're in the shared services bit, whether you're in finance, legal, you name it, the customer is the underpinning of every single daily activity that we do. So it starts right at the board and exco level and sits at our top strategy of the organization, which then, of course, we all have to digest it and eat it. And it is inside out. It has to start internally with us as an organization. And as individuals, you have to internalize as an individual first the importance or the role the customer plays in our daily lives, in our DNA. So we are going actually through a program where we are merging three things. One is the brand experience, customer experience, and then the other one is employee experience. We have to marry those three for us to deliver, I would say, that customer-obsessed organization that we are talking about. Now, when you look at the geographies in which we sort of serve, we are looking at more of a global thinking, but a local execution of your strategy. So what we are saying, or what our aspirations are at the top, have to be crushed down and locally executed, dependent on the geography that you are serving. We hope to be in the DRC, so I'll be going for some learning points to avoid the mistakes that were made there as we head towards that location. And one interesting thing is this: we were known as Kenya Commercial Bank. If you recall, we were called Kenya Commercial Bank. Now here you are going into Rwanda, calling yourselves Kenya Commercial Bank. You know how the reception and how things run around that, even every other country. And we went through, when I talk of brand now, towards rebranding ourselves to KCB. KCB is just a brand, a financial services provider. So if you go to South Sudan, it will be KCB South Sudan, not Kenya Commercial Bank South Sudan. So it's such small nuances that you have to come alive to, so that again you build that reception. But it has to start with your people. It has to start with the believability by your own staff before you even go out to convince any of your customers. So it is a journey, and we are still at it. And every time we keep tweaking, turning, changing, and evolving. So just watch this space.
Good to go. Good to know you're going into DRC. That's excellent, and congratulations. Job, just to stay on you just a little bit more. Sorry to focus on you. There's a while back when we were talking about, a few years ago, we were talking about the branch and how the branch is not going to go away. And we're talking about the difference, say, between the younger crowd or people going digital and not having time for the branch in cities, but the older crowd or rural crowd or that farmer in Kitale who still finds a lot of value in going to speak to his bank manager at the branch and makes time for it. Could you just talk a bit about those different experiences where, because we've been hearing this, especially in the city, that the branch should go away and it's all digital, because the people saying that are digital savvy. Could you talk a bit about the people who are still going to branches, the value in face-to-face at the branch?
The branch will stay. What will happen is that the branch will just reduce, maybe in terms of the physical presence, but the branch will be there. Now the bigger question is, what will be the branch? What will it be doing? Is, I think, will be the fundamental change. The branch probably will reduce in terms of its cash handling and that kind of stuff, because there will be a lot of automation around that space, a lot of adoption of technology. Customers are also learning, and the new customers, we said, a lot of transactions, a lot of things that they do are online, or they have the information online. So your branch will become more of a service point, a relational point, a place of information, advice, and really mapping your financial service journey. That's where you'll be going in to consult. So you'll have more of consultancy as opposed to traditional banking, you know, cash handling sort of habits.
Yeah.
So there is room for that, yeah, and across all towns, across all geographies, there is room for that. And people will go in there. Human interactions will never cease, yeah. In as much as you bring in technology, you cannot limit human interaction.
Yeah.
Yeah. We genetically, that's what we are as human beings. We want to relate, we want to interact with a live human being, and we want to see and have those. We are social beings. You want to have that face to face.
Yeah.
So across most of our towns and geographies, that is going to stay. And we have communities where, I mean, they just want to come and sit in the branch and say hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just have the assurance that everything is well, you're well, I'm well, the cattle, the chicken, everything is fine.
Yeah.
And you'll walk out feeling satisfied, you know, round about that. So that's the trajectory that I see. There might be a reduction in the footprint, but you're not going to eliminate branch interactions.
Okay.
If I may just add to that, I think a branch will just become it is another omni-channel. It's just another channel.
Yeah.
So this your customer it becomes almost like another customer experience, a very critical customer experience point.
Yeah.
And to his point, even if you go fully digital, especially in our African environment, there are things where just because actually you're more digital, I can do a lot more, but therefore have a lot more questions.
Yeah.
How do I get a CR12? You know, I know there's e-citizen, but maybe the branch managers or the guy at the branch is better placed because he sees this all day long.
Yeah.
He can even assist me. So that kind of interaction, which you can't really digitize, like you said, that need for social connection.
Yeah.
So they'll always be there.
No, that's good to hear. And I guess for our viewers, as it's something that's always been in contention for the last couple of years, especially with the growth of digital, thinking this is the fall of the branch and this is the end of the branch. And people even questioning why there's still branches, sometimes even why you're opening new branches or refurbishing old branches and so on and so forth. Liz, do you echo these sentiments about the branch experience? That branch will always be there. Branch is transforming what it traditionally did slightly, but it's here to stay.
Yeah, I totally agree with Job and Steve. The branch is here to stay, not in its current shape and form, where we're used to having branches for transaction purposes. Branches are now going to grow and are growing into advisory centers and for complicated transactions, which really it's maybe difficult to move it to our digital channels. So we just have to move towards that shift, and we've seen it with our counterparts in Europe and the States, where they started closing branches, but now the branches are coming back. We cannot go fully digital. We've just seen am I saying post-COVID? During this COVID era,
it's not over.
We were all working from home, but it reached a point where, you know, we're like, we want human interaction. I can't sit by myself in the house and just talk to a laptop the whole day.
Yeah.
So we are social beings, and for trusted services, especially sensitive services like financial advisory, customers still want to interact with a human.
Yeah. You touched on something like face-to-face interaction, and it got me thinking about how banks are making the movement towards digital banking. There's customers that feel that there's still too much bureaucracy, too much paperwork involved in some aspects that may be simple, like opening a bank account. And how does this look? How is this moving towards, you know, the day when we're fully digital, especially in the retail banking space? Things like opening bank accounts and a few maybe requesting for a loan and things like that. And I think let me start with you, Steve, on that. What's the move to being very digital? I wouldn't say fully digital, but heavily digital.
Yeah, I think when we all started on this journey as financial institutions, we all tended to digitize the process instead of digitizing the experience, which are two different things.
Yes.
And because it's technology, there's always a hefty, you know, capex involved. So even pivoting away from that, it becomes very tricky.
Yeah.
But I think we're getting to the point where we've understood that it's the experience we need to digitize. Basically, you have to re-engineer everything
Yeah.
from scratch. And in fact, that's one of the reasons I reached out to Marathon those many years ago, because I realized we were trying to digitize the process, which is just the surface where you actually interact.
Yeah.
But the Marathon approach, for just a shout out to you guys, was that you looked at the entire journey, those touch points all the way down to the system.
Yeah.
Which means we internally had to look at everything from scratch to try to really digitize the experience. And you're right, it's not there yet. We still have challenges from, let's say, a regulatory perspective,
Yeah.
where we can't do everything digital.
Yeah.
E-signatures are just now kind of getting adopted.
Yeah.
Even our own customers may not be comfortable doing an e-signature,
Yeah.
right? So we have to get over those cultural things. I think also depends on the markets. I'll let my dear friend know that in DRC, IDs is a problem. People don't have them. They can use a voting card. In fact, account opening is done at the branch. But that's just because of it, you can't do KYC properly. So you find those kinds of challenges.
Yeah.
So you have to be creative.
Yeah.
If it's an account opening and if you get the regulator to allow you to do it digitally, say in a place like DRC or some other place, well then you can say, well, you can open the account, but you can't really transact beyond X. You can only deposit until we do a full KYC, which could take another week or days or whatever. But during that time, I think that the trick is, if I may use that word, quote unquote, is to keep the customer engaged. Kind of let them know what you're doing. If there's a problem, engage them, call them, walk with them through whatever the journey is. In the past, what has tended to happen, whether it's digital or paper, as organizations, we go silent.
Yeah.
And you have to keep calling us. How about we flip it around, and the system, if it's purely digital, would actually update you. It's here, it's gone to this guy for approval, or it's missing this document. That's just that engagement. It may still take a week to get the account.
Yeah.
But because the journey involves the customer and you, doesn't feel that we're not getting where we need to be.
Yeah. No? Yeah, thank you very much. I think I'll turn it over to you, Job. And in the digital space, KCB is really quite big with a number of products, especially retail banking with Mobi, with Vuma. There's quite a number of products that you have. And how is customer experience on the digital space managed, which is very different from face to face?
Well, I would say that the customer is the same. Digital branch, whatever, is just a channel or choice of consumption.
Yeah.
It's just a channel that they prefer to use. So what you have to do, as I say, is just to customize the relationship based on which channel they've come in through.
Yeah.
So I remember when we started off social media, especially on Twitter.
Yeah.
The first dilemma that we had internally is that we have never been on this space before. So when a customer would tweet, I mean, my good team would respond, "Dear customer, thank you very much for your tweet."
Yeah.
Because we were used to that very formal structure of responding to you.
Yeah.
And again, we were a bank. I mean, after all, we are a bank, so we have to be very, formal and boxed in.
Yeah.
So we had to break that and, speak the customer's language.
Yeah.
Don't insult them, but speak the way they want to be spoken to in the channel that they have chosen to come through. So it's really about personalizing the relationship on the basis of where the customer wants to interact with you. So if they come through your digital platforms, then you know how to respond to them through those channels.
Yeah.
And then you also know that the digital platforms are platforms where people want almost instantaneous sort of reverts or responses. After all, that's why they're on digital.
Yeah.
So you do not have the luxury of delaying responses.
Yeah.
And that has forced us to rethink our supporting teams of the back end of that technology, that they have to be very, on the fly, smart, make quick decisions on those specific platforms and make sure that the platforms are working for the customers. So we look at our turnaround times, we look at how the throughput through all our systems. Again, we have to make sure that they address what the customer expects of being in that particular channel, as opposed to the one who has decided, I will come and take a walk to your branch, and he tells you, I'll come back tomorrow. So you have the luxury of a 24-hour period to get some sort of resolution. So it's all dependent, and that's how we sort of tune it. And we measure the experience on every single touch point that we have across our entire business.
Thank you very much for that. I'm going to set a question that's a bit provocative, looking at CX and the future. So if we look at near future, far future, let's say the next 5 years to the next 10 years, what does customer experience in banking look for NCBA in 2030 and beyond?
I think it's exciting. Why do customers bank? I think that's the first question. Why do customers come to a bank? Customers come to a bank because they want access to credit, or they want to transact, they want to move money from one place to another. So with that in mind, with all that's going around, with the technology advancement that's happening, customers are now asking for a frictionless experience. You know, don't make me walk from point A to B to bring you a paper.
Yeah.
And secondly, know me. Don't keep on asking me for my ID when I want to apply for a second loan and you have all my documents.
Yeah.
So when I think of banking and how it's going to evolve, a lot of this information and a lot of this technology will make KYC, or know your customer, which is a key pain point when we are digitizing in banking, very easy. So we'll be able to provide more and more solutions to our customers to be able to do what they want out of a bank. So and we are already seeing it with the advent of crypto. If you've buried your head in the sand and you're not researching about it, you'll get lost. Blockchain is coming up. Soon there'll be open banking. I'll be sharing information with Job and Steve, and the regulator will allow that. So how are we setting ourselves up for that success? Because customers now will even have a wider choice. Yes, there are banks that have that are operating in the UK and the US without a single branch.
Yeah.
And doing extremely well and overtaking the traditional and legacy banks. So that's where it's going to be, a place whereby KYC will be much easier for the customer. Open banking will be there. The advent of blockchain and crypto will be fully entrenched, so banking will be more inclusive.
Yeah.
And it's going to be an exciting time, and I hope we are there to enjoy it. We're actually setting the foundation right now.
No.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks, Liz, for that. I think I'll move on to you, Steve, on borrowing from that. Liz talked about fully digital banks and sometimes called challenger banks. What is it that we can borrow from these banks, the Monzos and the Starling banks in Europe, that we can bring here as the future of, and bring that in as future of customer experience in banking?
Well, I think first off we have to borrow the agility. I think they're very agile because they were born in a sort of agile environment, whereas we have legacy stranglehold on us.
Yeah.
We can't get away from it. We have to figure out how to work with that so that we can turn around, make those quick decisions. Even if you get the insights, how quickly can you implement them?
Yeah.
Is something I think all banks, are, at least in this environment, sort of struggle with.
Yeah.
Because of that cultural aspect. Another thing we need to understand is to see how they're leveraging the latest and greatest technology.
Yeah.
And that's key. And within our own organizations, what we're doing is, and Equity is pretty good at this, we're spending a lot of resources, money and human or otherwise, to start leveraging those technologies now.
Yeah.
That's the trick, like you're saying, laying the foundation for the future. One thing I always tell, because I come from more of the technical side of the bank, is the lead engineers working on the omni-channels, make sure the architecture is such that tomorrow, if Marathon wants to move some money on Alexia, they should be able to do it.
Yeah.
All I have to do is write the Alexa SDK. I shouldn't be going to tamper with the core system and all that. It's unnecessary.
Yeah.
I think those fintechs and those digital banks and the neobanks, what they're really good at is starting to embed financial services in the customer's lifestyle. And I think that's where it's going.
Yeah.
So if you're to look at 2030, 2050, if we're still around, I would maybe call it edge banking, edge financing, which is already starting out there. You got your LG refrigerator actually ordering from the kiosk, the milk.
Yeah.
But the money has to move. So
Yeah.
NCBA, Equity, hopefully it's equity, or any other bank, is where the money is moving.
Yeah.
And that's where we still make money.
Yeah.
Right. So that sort of edge financing, embedded finance,
Yeah.
is where I think it's going to be, and we sort of need to lay the foundation now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that sounds super interesting and futuristic. Job, I'll jump to you. And again, KCB has some futuristic products right now. Vuma, there's been investments done, major investments done into coming up with some of these products. So what does 2030 look for you in terms of, I'd say, products and customer service? Customer experience, sorry.
I think I'll just take off from what Steve has spoken about and, sort of the examples that he's given.
Yeah.
I think for us, it sits at a space where we'll have now to sort of orchestrate ecosystem strategies, yeah? So it will not be about running alone. It will be more about partnerships. It will be about collaborations. It will be about working together, and not just as financial institutions. We've got the fintechs coming up. Yeah, I'm seeing a couple of big fintechs, I think, coming up in the financial services in the next couple of years and becoming very big in that particular space. And again, the other area where you'll see, I would say, people winning or people preferring you is in a space where, for instance, things like environment, social, and governance, ESGs become very, very strong in choosing preference, because now the crop of people that are growing through or coming through are very environmental conscious, social conscious, the governance side. So any financial institution that comes about that is again strong on that front will become sort of an option to sort of look at and engage, because it speaks into the customer of that particular time. And then we'll have to look at some of the products that exist or existed. I know each you still have a checkbook, so I don't know how far you'll go on with that. Things like your credit cards in the next few years. Those will be something that you'll be, the way you had a Walkman is the same way you'll be showing there was something called maybe a credit card or an ATM or an ATM card. That is what I'm seeing in the very near future. Because I did talk about, say, my kids who have never been in a banking hall apart from when they're coming to visit daddy in the office, and they look at these structure and building and the concept of banking as it sits today, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to them. Yet, if they are going out to buy stuff, it's happening. So it's about collaboration. For instance, one of my girls shops at a store called, I think, Shin. Now, Shin develops, I learned this from a lady called Wandia Gishoro just the other day, that Shin actually produces 3,000 new designs every day. So now you expect, this girl to compete, on the ground with our local, say, stores, while that is the option that she has there. So how does she finance her purchases then, in some of these platforms that exist today? So it will be about collaboration. It will be about working together and leveraging on the strengths of other partners. And that's what has happened with some of the products and services that we have come up with. If you look at your KCB XPACERs, if you look at the Fulizas of this world, it's all about, again, partnering with other friends out there.
If I may just add on that, I think it's interesting, that concept, because in my view, I think open banking will force collaboration between banks.
It will.
It has to. Because we're all multi-banked. And if I'm asking Alexia to pay a bill, there's no reason why Alexia can't say, by the way, your equity account is short. Do you want to take it from your KCB account? See, that will only happen with collaboration and partnerships. And open banking is a channel to do that. And that's where we want to be, because I think we both benefit. We will all benefit on it, because it's not just about deposits anymore. That doesn't work.
No, that sounds like interesting times, and thank you very much. We can't wait for those times where, we'll be talking to Alexa and ordering, or the fridge will be ordering groceries by itself and things like that. That's something we're really waiting for. I think that evolution in experience, it's been happening already, like you're saying. The checkbook is looking, especially for personal banking, is looking more and more, it has less use than before. For example, I work with younger people who already ask me, and these are people in their 20s, how we paid each other before M-Pesa. Things like that. They can't picture how you paid your friend some money you owed them, or if you're putting together money for a trip, for example. If we're going somewhere and we need to raise 100,000 shillings, how did your friends send it to you? And we used to use, checks or real cash. Yeah, you had to walk to the branch, or you had to take checks from the three of you and I go bank them.
Yeah.
So yeah, these experiences are evolving. Like you said, for your daughter, it's going to be super interesting in the future. I'm going to turn to questions from people online, and I'll start with one, just looking at the pandemic and how you think, seeing we're kind of coming out of the pandemic, I'd say. The last 2 years we've been in and out of the pandemic, mostly in how it's affected customer experience for your banks. And I'll start with you, Liz.
The pandemic was both a blessing and a curse. Blessing because it has led to faster, to digital acceleration, adaptation of digital. So before, when we were trying to push our customers to the channels, mobile banking, online banking, and they're like, I still love the branch, I'll still go to the branch. Now they had no option. You have to use the digital channels. So it will be now much easier to roll out the digital channels, and customers are asking for more. So that means that they're keeping us banks on our toes, because we now have to be able to provide that level of digital experience that they're seeing out there. Nobody knew. I remember when it was an emergency, the pandemic has hit, and you've all been told to go work from home, and guys are like, how do you Zoom? And now everybody, Zoom is second nature. Our kids are using Zoom, and they're much better at it than us. So with that, then it's much easier to experiment, innovate, and have customers on board to experiment with you with that journey, because you don't want to roll out a product and shove it down the customer's throat. Customers are more willing to experiment and innovate with you. So it's an exciting space.
Thank you very much. Job, how did the pandemic affect customer experience in KCB?
I think the pandemic was a wake-up call for everybody. I think both the customer and also both internally. Because we realized that just in a snap like this, your business can go. So it is a time where I think virtually everyone in sort of business started showing lots of love to the customer. And for us in the customer experience field, it's a time that, everyone realized the power of customer experience and customer excellence, why you need the customer, why the customer should be at the heart of your business. Because yes, you have all your products, services and everything, but remove that customer away. And you're all done. The business is shut. So it was an awakening call, and that we need to show genuine love for the customer. We must know who we are serving and deliver for that particular customer. Also internally, there was the internal customer, because sometimes we tend to look at the external customer, but there's also the internal customer. How do we take care of the internal customer? And in a time like this, it was time for us to really come out strong as an organization in terms of taking care of the internal customer, that is our staff and their families, by way of being there if they needed any help, be it physical, mental help, psychological help. We had to be there, and we had to show ourselves strong for them, and therefore win that loyalty that they'll be there again to serve the external customer. So if we didn't take care of that space, then forget about the external. And then also other learning points is that some of the employees now, they realize that, hey, I can do other things apart from working from you, guy. That during this pandemic period, you realize that I can actually do something else that is more meaningful than working for your institution. So I think the amount of SMEs and side hustles that have been birthed during this pandemic period is again something to sort of look at and and sort of celebrate in one way, because people are getting empowered in their own selves, despite, of course, the big turndown, economically, that the pandemic brought. So from a customer experience point of view, I think it really accelerated the journey on the top level in terms of the thinking and the value of the customers to our lives.
Thank you very much. And I like what you said on empowering your internal teams, empowering employees and making them feel, there's a tomorrow. The pandemic's not the end of the business, even if they're not coming to the office. And I'd like to turn that into empowering them for customer experience, to give out the level of customer experience that's in your vision as a bank. And I want to turn to you, Steve, to talk a bit about that. Like, what does the bank do to train, to empower employees to give out good customer experience?
Absolutely. So, like I said at the beginning, it has to start from the top. And like both organizations, all three organizations, the board is involved.
Yeah.
Exco and all the various sub-boards we have, especially for the bigger banks with multiple boards across the region.
Yeah.
So it comes from the top, number one. You have to have funding for all these things you want to do. It's not free. It's not. It can be expensive sometimes.
Yeah.
Definitely driving the agenda down with constant reminders. What is the strategy? What's the vision?
Yeah.
We have our One Equity vision, which is sort of the pinnacle for our CX strategy. That's driven down to the less level, to the branch. Constant reminders. We have a lot of awareness campaigns. It's a culture change, and culture takes a while to shift.
Yeah.
Forget even change, but just to shift it. So there's some of the things we're pushing down the line, and we also want feedback coming up.
Yeah.
What are they experiencing out there?
Yeah.
It's one thing to learn CX, but then especially when it's a front line where it's not the digital is, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's a little bit more straightforward in terms of kind of understanding how to do the customer journey so you get a good CX.
Yeah.
But CX is beyond just the systems and the apps, it's also the people.
Yeah.
Who are actually even selling your PDQs or your POSs. That's where the CX starts, even before they start using your device.
Yeah.
How's that interaction? What are they saying?
Yeah.
How are they feeding back with the customer when there's issues? So all that is training.
Yeah.
And that has to be done constantly. So
Yeah.
those are some of the things we're doing.
No, thank you very much. And even beyond the training, there's the training, there's an empowering, there's the visioning. Looking at what you'd call innovation, or constantly improving your products, or coming up with those products that even customers don't expect, or those that cause delight. What resources and how do you manage that innovation? Because that's what brings you your next product, your next, or delight in an existing product. Maybe I'll turn to you, Liz, to talk a bit about how NCBA looks at innovation after understanding the customer.
So innovation comes in different fronts. There's that incremental change whereby maybe you have broken processes or a product is not working right for a customer, and you look for ways on how you're going to close that gap and so that the product works optimally. We feed a lot on from our employees who give us feedback from when they're interacting with customers, and collect that feedback to be able to feed back to the product managers, to the tech team, to close on those small nuances, as I call them.
Yeah.
But now there's the big innovation whereby you're now pushing towards transformation, something that no one has thought about, something that the customer does not even know they need, or employees do not even know that the customer needs. You have to be able to create environments whereby you are encouraging experimenting, you are allowing people to try out different things, harnessing ideas, and it's a culture. It has to be a culture that is inculcated in the organization.
Yeah.
So at NCBA, we are the go-getters, and innovation is a very key pillar for us.
Yeah.
And you have to also have a reward and recognition program around innovation so that the ideas keep on flowing.
Yeah.
And you're not, beating people for things that do not work, but encouraging them to keep on trying until a wow product comes out of that.
Yeah.
So it is a culture. It's not something that, people just lock themselves in a room. Some people do have innovation incubators where you lock yourself in a room and come up with wow. But it has to be a collaborative process. You can't just, you're not a silo.
Yeah.
You have to work with both the internal and external customers to come up with this wow eureka moment. So innovation is a culture.
No, well said, and thank you very much for that. And I'll turn to you, Job, because I know culture is big in KCB. There's been a lot of effort into building the internal culture. And how's that helping employees, especially frontline, manage CX better?
Well, coming from an institution like KCB, which I would say was very institutionalized, yeah, we had to change, yeah, based on what our customers are telling us and also the customers that we are serving. So that we had to internalize that and figure out, one, who are we serving, yeah, and how do they want us to go about it. And I know out there, if you think of KCB, you would think of it as this very sort of rigid kind of sort of bank, you know, and that kind of thing. It starts on small things. Just the other day, we launched our sort of the way we even dress and operate in the office. Yeah. We no longer do formal suits and ties. That one is off radar.
Nice.
We come to work looking like you. Each easy as you feel, bring your brain and apply your brain to the workspace. That kind of sort of thinking. So where we used to say you must be bottled up, tied up, gray suit, white shirt, you know, that was not the customer that we are serving today. The customer we are serving today wants to sit in a workspace like this, want to sit and we have collaboration and just sit in very sort of informal setups. So even us internally, we have to mirror what the customer wants and expects of us. And as I say, it is a journey because, you know, trying to break some of those old habits does take time. But the employee needs to see what is in for me and what is in for the customer. What do I need to do to attend and meet the needs of the customer? So I spoke earlier that it is a marriage between our brand, employee experience, and the customer experience. All those now have to marry for us to say that now we have an enabling culture that delivers on our customer excellence. So that's where we are at today. So if you walk in, you'll find it's a very big and also dynamic team across the entire, I would say, business setup, working more at internal collaboration, and we also rate the service that we receive from internal colleagues. So we do run sort of a poll where if I'm in, say, marketing, I will rate the service that I'm getting from finance and find out, are they facilitating my work so that I'm unlocked to manage the customer or not? And those scores are very critical to us, and they sit in the balance scorecard of everybody in the organization, from the CEO to the last man in the organization. So we have to sort of unlock, collaborate, and support each other to be able to pass that on to our customers.
All right. Well said. Well said. Thank you very much. I'll turn this question to you, but with a different twist, with an added question from one of our viewers. Equity has agency banking, and agency banking is a bit removed from the bank. It's really in the front line, in the stores, right with the people. How do you manage customer experience with agency banking, trying to mirror what you have in head office and the branches?
Yeah, so remember at this point, it's just another channel. It's omni-channel. So, and you have to have consistent experiences across any channel. So that means I can go to the branch and start a transaction. Let's say I make a deposit of a big amount. There's no reason why I can't go and see where that is. If it needed some regulatory approval at the agent in my local shags, right? I can do that. So it's the same across. Agents are well trained in terms of basic customer service. We know that this is another form of almost embedded finance, because they're embedding the finance right in the village. So somebody can come and pay their water bill or withdraw cash or deposit. So actually I think it's even simpler than sort of the pure digital customer journey CX stuff. This is it's a lot easier to implement, because you know you're dealing with somebody at the local level. This is their local butcher or agrovet. You know they're just moving money around, either borrowing or paying for things. As long as that interaction at that point with that gadget, with that digital experience is a good and fast experience, you're home free. I think that the question for us is, how deep can we go with this agency concept? As deep as you can go is the best way to do it. So that you don't always have to have a smartphone. You can go to an agent and you can get all your business taken care of from any segment. Obviously, other than large enterprise or corporate, but SMEs and retail, should be pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And I think at this point, we're going to take one last question from the people watching live, and I'll throw it to each one of you. So, and the question is, since the financial services sector is highly regulated, do you find that clashing with customer experience or your activities in customer experience or trying to evolve products, or are you able to keep innovating even within the highly regulated space? Is it a barrier? Is it a big barrier? Is it something you're able to work around? Is there any way you can influence regulation as you move to innovate? I'll start with you, Liz. Sorry.
So yes, the banking industry is highly regulated.
Yeah.
But lucky for us, the regulator, we are regulated by many regulators, but most of the regulators are partners. You can actually go to them with your innovation idea and explain to them what you want to implement. They'll happily walk the journey with you, even act as advisors and give you back feedback on the gaps that you need to close, and give you the leeway to implement. So if you take that approach that your regulators are partners,
Yeah.
they're also learning. Things are cropping up very fast. You can hardly keep up.
Yeah.
So they're also learning, and they're willing to work with banks to achieve the innovation that they need to be able to make the customer experience frictionless. So that's a good thing, and there are very many products and services that we can talk of that the regulator has actually worked with the banks to ensure that they are rolled out. We can see now that they are even talking about digital currencies, something that nobody thought about, and it would be great stuff working with them to roll those out. So regulation has to be there because of the sensitivity of financial services, and also the international community. We have the anti-money laundering act that is governed across the world.
Yeah.
Regulation has to be there, but we are willing to play within those boundaries and work with the regulators to continue innovating for our customers.
I like that. So the regulator is a partner and not a barrier. Yeah. How do you feel about that, Steve?
I agree. I agree with Liz, absolutely. I think they're not blockers. CBK issues guidelines.
Yeah.
They don't do the guidelines. So it's like a fence, and usually it's designed to protect the system, but also more so the customer.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do you innovate within that fenced area? I mean, you can. I mean, you still have a lot of innovation we can do in that without even going beyond that, the boundaries.
Yeah.
But I think if push comes to shove, there's some areas where you can actually push the boundaries. And in that case, you have dialogue with the regulator, their partners, and say, look, this guideline doesn't cover this. We can actually start doing it. And later on, if they feel that it's detrimental to the system or to the customer, they'll issue another guideline.
Yeah.
Right. But I think there's room to innovate. There's plenty of innovation we can do. Innovation is hard.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to run out of innovation just because the regulators put a boundary. So, like she said, they're partners, and they're there for both the customers and the financial system.
No,
that's very encouraging. Job, what do you think?
I think Liz had the unfair advantage of having the marking scheme to that question.
Yeah.
But she's well put it. And as we said, I said that earlier and alluded to it, that the regulator is one of the partners. It's a partnership, and I talked about partnerships. So the regulator is not, say, a watchman. The regulator is a partner with us in this business. And again, the regulator, what they're doing is also protecting the interests of our customers. That's again the primary focus.
Yeah.
But we also have to remember that the regulator is also not static. The regulator is also thinking of what is happening outside of their scope. They are also innovating in themselves to find out what's happening in the financial services markets or other markets. So they are also enriching their body of knowledge on the regulatory space. So it's for us to play in that space, to collaborate with them. They give us, again, the framework of working, and we fit ourselves within that. So out of the partnership, they learn, and we also do learn some of those things through that collaboration.
Yeah. No, well said. And it's really encouraging to hear that the CBK especially is not a blocker. and is allowing, customer experience and products to grow and to innovate. So thank you very much for that. So at this point, we're going to close, and I'd like to thank our viewers. We have our viewers online on YouTube live. I'd like to thank you very much for your questions and for listening to us. This was the first edition of XPACERS from Marathon, so tune in for more. This episode is going to be recorded also, so watch out on social media for the recordings coming out in case you missed, and feel free to share, like, subscribe to the Marathon channel, and you'll be getting more on XPACERS. So remember, XPACERS is where Marathon shares its pace-setting products and services. And please visit marathonxp.com, our website. So thank you very much. Today we had the pleasure of Liz Okomba, Group Head, Customer Experience, NCBA Bank. We had Steve Jenga, Group CIO, Payments, Equity Group Holdings. And last but not least, we had Job Jiro, Director, Customer Excellence, KCB Group Shared Services. So thank you very much, lady and gentlemen.
Thank you.
It's been a wonderful evening discussing customer experience with you.
Thanks for
Thank you
having
for
us.
having us.
Thank you for
Thank you.
having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready or not, we run, skip with the flow, feeling the rhythm that bounce your money. Watch a kulala, changamka kiasi, higher basi, up and away we go. From the bottom we rise, look at the light in our